Welcome back to another episode of the Apache podcast. My co-host is taking a break right now, so it'd just be me hitting on the Ukrainian Russian side, uh, taking a little holiday break away from the um, normal current events. But yeah, so there's a good amount of updates going on with this. So. Um, I mean, as of recent, we have oh, and I'll share the research on all of this, but um, I think it's Daniel Driscoll, the Secretary of Army, he was pretty much sacked. He was one of the special representative that went to Ukraine trying to sell the American peace deal to Zelensky, vice versa. Um, and then there's some EU stuff going on. So I'll go into it as we discuss this. So
Are working on a revised peace proposal from the U.S. CNN's Melissa Bell takes a look at what's in the plan.
President Zelensky has been speaking in a little bit more detail about the revised peace plan that has now been handed back to the United States, a 28-point peace plan that has now been revised by the Ukrainians to have just 20 points. What he's been telling journalists is that this is a plan that has now been worked on by Europeans and Ukrainians and therefore represents, he says, a European vision for ending the war in Ukraine. Within those points, one detailing the Ukrainian position, which is that the idea of a demilitarized zone could function only for the Ukrainians along the contact line, not handing over the whole of the Donbass to the Russians as they had hoped for initially. There is also within the revised plan the idea that Ukraine would receive NATO-style Article 5 protections.
and so with this whole NATO style article security guarantees, you have to like understand um, because the only reason why NATO is as good as is or is as from the sound of it is because of with the United States backing. Without the United States backing, NATO isn't really that important. I'm not saying that Europeans isn't, as a collection is weak or anything like that. I'm just saying that the United States is one of the sole, primary reason why countries, why NATO stands as a titan against alliances, around the world. But at the same time, um, you know, and I hit on this last episode. Um, in my opinion, I think that if NATO, if Russia were to attack a existing NATO member, uh, could be, it could be the Baltics, it could be, you know, Romania or Moldova, one of those Eastern European countries that are a part of the NATO membership. I really don't think that the United States would actually come to its defense. Reason why I say that, I think that it is because the United States has already, you have to understand the current United States administration is American first, regardless of, sure, like the Ukraine-Russian war isn't black and white, even though it is, but the United States makes it not a black and white issue. Um, the whole reason why NATO, the reason why Russia attacked Ukraine was because of the US made a promise not to expand NATO. Um, but at the same time, um, with the current administration, it's all about American first agenda, and of course that's great for the Americans, and not so great if you're not an American. Likewise, if you're even bound by economic alliances, military alliances alike. I think that there's so much to it than just, than just saying that that Ukraine, Ukraine needs security guarantee, a NATO-like guarantee, because even I don't even know if the United States can offer, or sure, they can offer, is willing to uphold the offer that it makes. Yeah, going back to why I think then that United States will actually not, not go, not help a invasion of a Eastern European um, NATO countries. So let's continue.
Without actually joining NATO. In fact, any mention of it joining NATO has been removed, as has the language that might have barred the country from any hope of joining NATO. At some point, there is the inclusion, also the idea that Ukraine might be able to join the European Union in 2027. So a number of points that Ukrainians have turned into the basis, they believe, of further negotiations that can now take place. We expect that over the course of the next few days, those talks will continue between Europeans, the United States, and Ukrainians. The big question on the minds of many European diplomats and leaders, officials as well, mainly, is what Russia will make of the changes to its initial 28-point plan.
Well, obviously, the 28-point peace plan was created, was a Russian wish list, Christmas list now. And it has been revised to 20 peace plan. Of course, that's going back and forth between the US and the Ukrainian side. The revision that were presented with Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, proposal to Putin, was pretty much shot down immediately. I mean, obviously, if you have a brain, you kind of piece it together that it was going to be a no-go. And I was surprised that the United States, understanding the Russians' demand, kind of gave an okay for the for the you know for the 20-point peace plan. But at the same time, it's also I also think that it's the presenter, who were the ones presenting the proposal to Putin. These individuals are economic people, and they're essentially, in it for in it, I think, in it to get rich, in it to, for self-interest, more so, more United States interest. I'm not saying that's bad by any means, but I think that, they're essentially is willing to sell out the Ukrainians for Americans to, or I shouldn't even say Americans, but for, the Trump circle to get more money, or a potential partnership um, down the line with Russia. So.
And whether it is actually willing to negotiate. Melissa Bell, CNN, Paris.
Earlier, I spoke to John Luff, the head of foreign policy at the New Eurasian Strategy Center, a London-based think tank, and I asked him about whether Russia will budge on its demands for the Donbass region. Here he is.
It's very difficult to see how Russia's going to move on this issue. It seems to be a red line that